Welcome to the MS&Me Radio Network, a division of the Multiple Sclerosis Global Support Network. The following program broadcast is an original creation by the broadcast entity. Discussion within the following broadcast should be used for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional medical advice or consultation. Before considering application of any broadcast content in the following program, please consult your healthcare provider. If you feel you are having a medical emergency, please contact your local health services for immediate assistance. MS&Me Media and the Multiple Sclerosis Global Support Network do not guarantee or warrant the accuracy of information in the broadcast to follow. The Multiple Sclerosis Global Support Network provisions broadcast services to program hosts. Information discussed in the broadcast does not necessarily reflect the views, opinions, or goals of the network and are solely those of the show broadcast host. Should you wish to host a broadcast, please visit our website at msmemedia.com and submit a request to become a program host. We thank you for listening to the MS&Me Radio Network. Enjoy the show.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me again this week here on MS&Me Radio. My name is Anisha, and my show is, of course, MS Journey. I want to give a big shout out again to MS&Me Radio and also to the MSGSN, the Multiple Sclerosis Global Support Network, for this amazing opportunity to share information with my fellow MS warriors on different things about MS that hopefully will help you guys out and make your journey with MS where you know that you're not alone. That's most important here. This week, I'm going to talk about something because I've seen a lot of people ask the question, do I need to know what type of MS I have? And the answer to that is yes, you do. It is very important that you know what type of MS that you have. So even if you're newly diagnosed and your doctor, say, just in the course of conversation, because sometimes it can be a little difficult to kind of hear those words, those 4 words, you have multiple sclerosis. I remember, batting my eyes like an owl, blank stare, because you're just like, oh my gosh. But it can, really throw you off. And there's some things maybe later on that you'll think about, like, oh my gosh, I wish I would have asked this, or just so much goes through your mind. And you're thinking, am I going to die? Like I asked my doctor and he told me eventually. Which of course did make me laugh again, because that is true. We all are eventually gonna leave this earth, and at this rate, with everything going on in the world, you're just like, oh my gosh. But it is very important that you do know what type of MS that you have. So just in case your doctor maybe it wasn't enough time, or maybe they just kind of weren't sure of how you were processing the information that you were given. Perhaps they're going to discuss it with you at a next appointment. Again, maybe, they were busy, they were maybe running behind. It is very important that you talk to your doctor and you ask your doctor, what type of MS do you have? That is information that you do need to know. Very important. So now that we got that, I'm going to talk to you guys about the 4 different types of MS. Again, it is important information for you guys to know. Now, as I'm sure you guys know, because even once you get diagnosed, you're probably realizing you've got some, nerve damage, some tingling, some numbness, and some things just don't work like they used to. Nerve damage is something else. It's definitely a force to be reckoned with, and but it is part of the disease. I'm so sorry. Y'all gotta forgive me. Sometimes I'll kind of start beatboxing with my words. It's like blip, blip, blip. That too is part of MS. Okay, so forgive me that sometimes I get a little tongue tied and I'll start beatboxing. Let me try that again. Nerve damage is part of the disease. It is part of multiple sclerosis, but the pattern of nerve damage, it's unique for every different MSer. So my nerve damage is going to be different from anybody else that has MS, although it's going to be similar, to some people, but that's why they call it a snowflake disease. Again, I say that quite often because no two people are alike. The type that you have with your MS, it's important because it helps to predict how severe the disease can be and how well a treatment will work, which is there I go again, beatboxing. But again, I'm gonna just keep on going because I'm gonna be real with y'all. I'm gonna be transparent, and that beatboxing is kind of part of this MS here where words get jumbled. So I apologize. Um, Let me try that again. It helps to predict how severe the disease can be and how well a treatment or disease modifying therapy will work. And again, that's if you choose to take one. It is your choice if you decide to take a disease modifying drug or therapy. Now, with the four types of MS, first, there is relapsing remitting multiple sclerosis. That one is the one that is most common. 85% of people that have multiple sclerosis, they have the relapsing remitting multiple sclerosis type. Usually people with this type, they have their first signs of the disease in their early 20s. Okay. Now it's weird because what usually happens, and even when I think back to my early 20s, and after having records looked at and all that good stuff, and I can remember and was thinking, yeah, but they told me it was this, or they told me that I had gout, or they told me that it was all just madness and craziness that I was being diagnosed with. But actually what it was MS. Okay. And unfortunately it wasn't caught. And that happens a lot with people. So I definitely want to make sure that people do understand that the first signs of the disease usually happen in a person's early 20s. After that, a person may have attacks of symptoms or relapses. That's what that's called. When you hear the word relapse, it's an attack of your symptoms, and it'll happen from time to time. And then from there, you'll kind of have weeks, months, or even years where you may not seemingly have anything. It's like it goes into remission. So think about it. When you're in your early 20s, something happened or something happens, and then all of a sudden, nothing. Because you know what? That incident happened, and then it went into remission. Okay? But the nerves, they are affected. Okay? The nerves are affected, how severe the attacks are, the degree of recovery, and the time between the relapses. It all varies. It varies so differently from person to person. And eventually, most people, note I said eventually, most people that have the relapse and remitting form of multiple sclerosis, they will move on to secondary progressive multiple sclerosis. Okay. So what's important to remember with relapse and remitting multiple sclerosis is that 85% of people have this type. 85%. Usually people with this type, the first signs of the disease happen in their early 20s, and it's probably usually misdiagnosed, and it unfortunately it happens. And after that, it's followed by weeks, months, years. I mean, years, even decades sometimes of absolutely nothing. It goes into a remission. Okay. But know that nerve damage that did happen from it, it's there, but it'll seem to kind of go into a little bit of a hidden remissed sort of state. Okay. Now, with secondary progressive multiple sclerosis, let's talk about that one. Now, after living with relapse and remitting multiple sclerosis for many years, most people will then develop secondary progressive multiple sclerosis. With that type, the symptoms begin to remain steady. It's steady. Like, say, a leg is numb. That leg will tend to just always be numb. Okay. and it'll stay numb, and there's no relapses or remissions. It just kind of stays. That leg will stay numb, and it's just like that. And you're kind of like, when is it gonna let up? When am I, gonna kind of get out of this flare or relapse sort of thing? And sometimes that just doesn't happen. Okay. The change typically happens between 10 and 20 years after a person was diagnosed with relapsing remittent multiple sclerosis. It is also unclear why the disease makes the shift, but researchers do know a few things about the process. Okay, now I want you guys to remember that given that usually 10 to 20 years after a person's been diagnosed, also keep in mind that if you were in your 20s and you had an episode of multiple sclerosis that was not caught, okay, it was misdiagnosed, or it just happened for a couple of days and you're just like, yeah, okay, I don't know what that was. Moving along. What's for breakfast? You just kind of, keep going. You just dismiss it. It was just a little thing, and you continue on. And let's say it was 10 years later before you had a next episode of that MS, before it showed up again, and then you're like, okay, something's not right, so I'm gonna go to the doctor and figure out what's going on. um Sometimes that's how people end up, and they're like, I don't get it because I'm just newly diagnosed, but they're telling me that I have secondary progressive multiple sclerosis. That's why. Okay, it's because you've already had it. You passed the relapse and remittent phase of multiple sclerosis with seemingly very few episodes. You might have just had that one or two, and it was really no big deal, to the point to where no one caught it. Because again, MS can be a tricky thing to diagnose. It can really be tricky. So I want people to make sure that they do have that, part of this puzzle, this amazing tricky disease, that people understand that. Now, again, it's unclear why the disease does make the shift, but there are some things that researchers do know, and I want to make sure to share those with you guys. The older that a person is when they're diagnosed, the shorter the time they have before they transition to secondary progressive MS. Okay. Once again, it goes back to that example that I just gave you guys earlier. Okay. You could have had an episode in your 20s, late 20s, and it was like no big deal. You seemed to walk right through it because you didn't really know what it was, and it only lasted for a couple of days, and you're just like, I don't know what this is. Couldn't even get into the doctor to figure out what it is, so it's gone. I'm not worried about it. Okay. So then say 10 years passes or 5 years passes, and of course we all end up having birthdays and we get a little older, although I don't admit to mine. I still say that I'm 21 when I'm not. But as those years go, you're older, and then that disease process is also older within your body. Okay, so that is exactly why sometimes when people are diagnosed, it seems like it's a shorter time before they end up being secondary progressive with their multiple sclerosis. Also, people who don't fully recover from relapses generally move to secondary progressive MS faster than those who do. Okay, that's an important piece of information to know as well. Now, again, none of this is to scare anybody. It's to provide information. It's to, help people learn, to help people understand, because it's all a whole scary process. And, when you don't know what you don't know, and it takes us kind of sitting down and talking about it to help people get an understanding. Okay, because for me, the more I know, the better prepared that I am. And everything that I've learned, I agreed with my doctors. One of my favorite doctors, she retired, and I always told her, I will share everything that you have taught me. Every single thing, I will share it. And MS&Me has given me this platform to do so. And that's exactly what I am doing, because that lady is absolutely amazing. Okay. Also, one of the other things that researchers have learned too with secondary progressive MS, the process of the ongoing nerve damage, the change after that transformation, the less inflammation, and it's more of a slow decline in how well the nerves work. Okay, so when you look at that, the nerve damage is there. Okay, it's there. And then it seems weird because a lot of times when you're relapsing remitting, there is the inflammation that's on the inside that can be seen through MRI and things like that. But with secondary progressive, there's less swelling, there's less inflammation, but the MSer it's themselves, it's a slow decline in how well the nerves work, and how that's going to be seen is through a nerve conduction study. Okay, so you will probably notice that you'll end up getting a few more of those nerve conduction study tests, which are a bit annoying, but you'll get more of those. And I know that some tests are just so uncomfortable and we don't like to have them, but believe me, these tests tell these doctors so much, and what it tells them is exactly what you are going to need to know. So again, it's very important to keep your line of communication open between you and your doctor or your doctors, okay? So that you know everything that you need to know about your disease and its process. Now, secondary progressive MS, it is tough to treat. It's hard to handle day by day for the person that's living with it. It's very hard to handle. Symptoms worsen at a different rate for each person. Please remember that. For each person, everything is going to be different because it is a snowflake disease. Treatments or disease modifying drugs, they work moderately well for most people. And again, that's if people decide that they want to take a disease modifying therapy or drug. Some people don't want to, and that's okay. You know, if that's your choice. And there are some people that want to. So definitely it's all up to, you as the patient if you want to take a disease modifying drug or not. Okay, so the next type of MS is, y'all got to forgive me today. My brain is like half asleep. Woo! Bear with me. Sorry about that. Okay, I'm beatboxing and my brain is sleeping. I'm having a hard time. Looks like I'm already headed towards Halloween to be a zombie, right? Y'all, please bear with me. Okay, the next type of MS is primary progressive multiple sclerosis. With this type of multiple sclerosis, primary progressive, the disease gradually worsens over time. There are no well-defined attacks of symptoms, and there's little to no recovery. There's only about 10% of people with MS that actually have this type of multiple sclerosis. And again, this type is primary progressive multiple sclerosis. Now, I want to, talk a little bit here because a game changer hit the market in the United States in July with the disease modifying therapy. And that game changer is Ocrevus or Ocrevus. It depends on which doctor you see, how they pronounce it. It cracks me up because some say Ocrevus and some say Ocrevus. So I don't really know. I'm a little bit Southern, so I'm going to say, Ocrevus, okay? I'll just pick that one because it just sounds a little easier for me. But that particular medication is a game changer because it not only works for people with relapse and remitting multiple sclerosis, but it also works for people that have primary progressive multiple sclerosis. So that particular disease modifying therapy, it is an infusion, and it is a game changer. We finally have a game changer. Ding, 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 ding. Ocrevus. Again, it is up to you if you want to take a disease modifying therapy. But again, I would visit ocrevus.com, read everything that you can about it. Also, talk to your doctor about it. If you are someone who is living with primary progressive multiple sclerosis, if you are thinking that maybe perhaps you do want to try a disease modifying therapy at this point, please talk to your doctor about that. And again, I'm not here to, plug. I mean, it kind of is a plug because I'm excited for the PPMSers, that there is something out there for them. I'm very excited. Like I'm excited for myself. I'm excited for everybody that there is something that's out there that, I've heard nothing but great things about. Okay. So for PPMS, there is Ocrevus, however it is that we want to say it. Maybe one day I'll come back and let y'all know the exact way to say that. Okay. The fourth type of multiple sclerosis is it is progressive relapsing multiple sclerosis. That is the fourth type. It is also the least common form. Remember that it's the least common form. With that one, relapses or attacks happen every so often, but symptoms continue and they get worse between relapses. Note, it gets worse between relapses. This type of MS is rare enough that there is not much known about it. Only 5% of people with MS have this type of multiple sclerosis. In many ways, it's similar to primary progressive multiple sclerosis, but it is different, okay? And again, that is the progressive relapsing multiple sclerosis. That is that type. And only 5% of people so far, that's the percentage that have it. So it is very rare. Remember, things get worse between relapses with that one, okay? So with talking about those types of multiple sclerosis, again, relapse and remittent multiple sclerosis, 85% of people that have MS, they are living with that type. There's secondary progressive multiple sclerosis. There is also primary progressive multiple sclerosis. And then there is the progressive relapsing multiple sclerosis. Again, my brain's a little bit off there, so y'all gotta forgive me. I'm so sorry. Again, all part of this disease. I choose to be very transparent with you guys so that you guys kind of do know, even for people that don't have MS and listen to my show, that you realize just how it is. I mean, seriously, I have more brain backfires in one day than anybody that I can think of, pretty much. It's a really complicated thing to live with, but it is very important that you do know what type of MS that you are living with. It's important for many reasons. Now I'll have people ask me the question, well, I was PPMS and now I'm relapse and remittent MS. Okay, let me say this. Is it possible? I'm going to say a maybe, okay? And the reason why I'm going to say the maybe baby. Remember that on Major Pain? Y'all forgive me. I'm just out here flapping this week, okay? I'm going to say that sometimes what has happened is that unfortunately, sometimes they don't understand the type that the doctor is telling them that they have, and they can sometimes be misdiagnosed with the wrong type. That's why, again, I always suggest to people that it's very important that you ask to see a specialist in the field of what you are diagnosed with. Meaning, you're diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. please ask to see an MS specialist, okay? So that that MS specialist can do your workup and they can tell you what type of multiple sclerosis that you are living with. Now, with Ocrevus or Ocrevus now being on the market, could it be possible that someone come from PPMS and go back to a relapse and remitting state? I'm going to say it very well could be. It very well could be. But I would say that that population of people that would have happened to would be those folks that have been on that medication probably for the last 5 years in the clinical trial phase of it. So usually when I hear it from other people and like I ask them this question, like, it's kind of like not that situation. So I definitely, want to strongly suggest again keeping those lines of communications open with your doctor. And it's very important that you and your doctor just stay open with each other. And even if you have a regular neurologist that specializes in something else and it's not multiple sclerosis, they should not be upset with you or mad at you in any way because you asked to see an MS specialist, so that that MS specialist is kind of over your care and communicating with that regular neurologist that you may see locally in your area. There should not be any, mad or upset or anything like that, because it takes a village sometimes. And this disease is so complicated that in many ways it takes a village, and usually with one type of autoimmune disorder, there will come another, possibly another, that happens. So it's pretty common sometimes to have multiple sclerosis and then end up with some type of rheumatological issue like lupus, Sjogren's syndrome, otherwise known as SICA, that's SICCA, or rheumatoid arthritis or celiac disease, or there's all kinds of things that are out there that, can happen because you have one autoimmune disorder. Usually you're blessed and you're very fortunate if something else does not pop up, but sometimes other things do. Other things do pop up on the radar. So it's very important that you do know what type of multiple sclerosis that you have, because if you're seeing a different doctor, okay, and you have something else going on, that doctor is going to need to know what type of MS you have, what type of disease modifying therapy that you're on for your MS if you choose to take one, okay? So that whatever medication that they're going to give you for whatever other, disease process or autoimmune disorder that you may have, so that these medicines don't collide, okay? They don't clash with each other. So it's very important for the lines of communication to be open. So if you're somebody that's listening to this show now and you do not know what type of MS that you have, please do me a favor, call your doctor's office, leave them a message, leave it for the nurse or for the doctor, and let them know that you do not know what type of MS that you have, so that someone can call you and let you know, or that you would like to schedule an appointment and come in so that you can have an idea of what type of MS that you have. Also, keep in mind, it may take a little bit sometimes. They may have to kind of watch you a bit to see what's going on based on your number of lesions and the activity that's going on. Maybe there needs to be some cooling with some steroids and things like that. Kind of get you on a drug and see how you respond to a drug. Again, that's if you so choose to do that. So please keep that in mind too, that sometimes there may be a little bit slow in letting you know what that, type of MS is, but always be asking the question because it is very important for you to know. And I want to thank you guys again for tuning in with me this week. I apologize for my beatboxing and blah, 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 losing my words and my brain here. It's been a tough week and I'm getting ready to have a really tough week coming up in front of me. So I want you guys to know that I love you so much, and tune in again with me next week. What I'm going to be doing is some different parts and hitting these basics of kind of MS 101 is what we're going to be doing to not only bring awareness for ourselves with MS, but also for people who don't have it, because that's very important. And we'll also kind of be crossing over into some other, disease processes as well that kind of come along with this. Okay. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. I love you very much and have a great week. Love you.